Chapter 4 Scientific Process. The halls are silent before the hour strikes 6 in the morning. The air is still and cool. After 2 hours of dreaming, Dr. Winter rises from his bed. He enters the bathroom and approaches the mirror. "Pigsby?" he says. A pixelated smiley face appears in the mirror. It glows with a faint turquoise color, in contrast to the rest of the plain white and gray bathroom. The face moves its block-like mouth to speak to Dr. Winter. "Hello, Julius," the face says. Julius pulls a razor from the cabinet above the toilet. "How are you, Pigsby?" he asks. Pigsby shows a blink of a buffering wheel. "I'm not made to answer conversational questions," Pigsby says. "Can I help you with something?" Julius puts out a hand toward the mirror. "Just some shaving cream," he says. The mirror protrudes a small pump from a hidden compartment. It gives a blob of shaving cream to Dr. Winter's fingers. With a clean-shaven face, Dr. Winter nearly throws his clean lab coat over his shoulders. "Dr. Winter?" a voice says. Julius turns around, his brows together with curiosity. He sees a sound wave displayed on a wall by the bathroom door. A name next to it says Monica Zhao. Dr. Winter throws his shoulders down and rolls his eyes. He throws his lab coat onto the bed and approaches the wall. He hits a button that says, "Speak." "Yes?" he says. "Julius," Monica says, "the maintenance schedule was wrong. It was supposed to be last night. I need those readings now." "The same readings?" "Yes, the heat distribution monitor," Monica says. "If you could read the analog meter and log them in for me, that would be great." Dr. Winter nods. "I'll get that done." The engineer makes his way to the core of the ship. In a room just before the power generator halls, he enters a reading room. Analog meters show the distribution of heat coming out of the core and onto the surface of the Mendel Explorer. Dr. Winter taps the wall and enters the reading into a message to Monica Zhao. A sound wave with her name comes to the wall as he types. "Thank you, Julius," Monica says. "Anytime," says Dr. Winter. He closes the screen and the wall becomes a metal surface once more. He leaves the room and makes his way up toward the surface again. Once there, he finds his lab coat on his bed where he left it. He throws it over his shoulders and wears it to the engineering lab. Dr. Winter fingers the cold tools on the metal tables. Screwdrivers, a soldering iron, and a can of compressed air. The stillness about the halls makes the mornings very cold. Julius is familiar with the precipitation on the windows, and unfazed by the clash between cold tools and warm, rested hands. The clock strikes 6, and feet begin to shuffle through the halls. Then 7, when the dining hall fills with the smell of breakfast. Finally, as the clock approaches 8, the roar of life fills every room. Beakers clang in chemistry labs, and fingertips tap on wall-projected screens. This is when Dr. Lawrence comes in with a hot cup of black morning brew. "Good morning," she says. "Morning," he says back. "Monica had me do readings this morning." "Classic Monica," Dr. Lawrence says. "What have you got so far?" "Well, none of this is efficient," says Dr. Winter. "Earthlings wasted a lot of energy." He gestures his hand toward a pile of dissected components. Copper wire is strewn about. "I don't think superconductors were popular yet." "I'm not surprised," she begins. "By the way, I wanted to send out a message across the team. They need to be more careful with the electronics." Julius nods. "They're fragile from the cold." He places a broken PCB before her. "I already spoke to a few of the guys about that." "Who?" "The assistants," says Dr. Winter. They agreed. Elizabeth shrugs away her concern and picks up her work. The day wears on, and as lunch comes around, Dr. Lawrence removes her lab coat. Julius follows her lead and proceeds with her down to the cafe. Together they sit with the heads of each department. Here they are welcomed by both the leading biologist, Dr. Manning, and the head of sociology, the renowned psychologist, Dr. Arnold Hoyt. The historical department's Ron Morris quietly joins soon after. Dr. Morris is quiet but attentive. His words are few and decisive, and likewise Dr. Hoyt is selective when he speaks. However, no one's opinion is more valuable than Dr. Hoyt's. A bit of a celebrity on Zion, Dr. Hoyt has made many advancements in sociology. Over the course of decades, he's designed successful programs to prevent crime and improve many lives. His therapy sessions led to the willing surrender and conviction of Eden's most haunting serial killer, the Cannibal Rat and West Side Killer, Duncan Van Roy. Dr. Manning and Morris have few accolades in comparison. Some important research, but nothing as impressive as bringing a golden age to the capital of United Zion. Manning is known for being self-absorbed and vain. His attention is seldom on the desire of others. But his cause is obscured to most. To his peers, the line is unclear between being self-righteous and having devotion to his duty. Between the three men, a conversation fails to take off until the Zhao sisters arrive. Both women serve as the ship's lifeline. Linda oversees navigation and reconnaissance, while Monica manages the logistics of food, water, and energy. Soon, empty seats are filled by the assistants who work second in command to each department head. Finally, the captain sits at the end of the table. Dr. Leachmere joins him by his side. All attention falls on the captain, and Hoyt asks the most anticipated question. "What's the next move, Captain?" Peter answers slowly. He looks around to read the faces of each individual. "We're supposed to start digging. We need to get the biological team down on the Pacific ice sheet." He stabs the vegetables on his plate. "Aside from drilling down there, we have nothing. Does anyone have an idea they'd like to add?" Dr. Manning seizes the opportunity. "I think the sooner we get drilling, the better." Everyone agrees. Elizabeth begins to think out loud. "We need a little more context on my end. The language barrier makes it hard for us to understand what those artifacts are. Maybe if we dropped off in North America, we could find some language learning material." "It's too far to make in one trip," Linda mentions. Her sister adds, "We can't put enough fuel in one scout ship." "What about the second scout ship?" Elizabeth asks. The captain makes a pained face. "I already spoke with Linda. I'm not willing to have two teams out at once. Not yet, at least." His eyes look around to the department heads. "I'd rather get used to things before we spread out." He sits up straight and looks sincerely at Elizabeth. "I want to make the most out of our time, I really do. But if someone dies, that's far worse than a day or a week lost." Elizabeth's face falls. "Do you think it'll take a week?" Manning puts down his glass and doesn't break eye contact with his food. "It should take a few weeks." Elizabeth takes a breath to begin another comment, but Dr. Manning cuts her off. "The medicinal value of those organisms is very important." Julius watches as Elizabeth's face grows innocent and less confident. He quickly begins to negotiate. "What about the English learning material?" Manning sucks in a breath of aggravation. "England is too far, even Australia. Not Australia, Japan. The Japanese who wanted to learn English." The captain folds his hands before his face and leans in to place his mouth behind them. "We can learn it all backwards," Julius says. "It's tough, but we can do it. The historical department's waiting on us after all." He gestures toward Ron, who begins to nod in agreement. The captain and the Zhao sisters begin nodding too. Linda looks toward Elizabeth and Julius, then to the captain. "Stop by Tokyo. It's on the way to the drilling point, no time wasted." In agreement, the team finishes lunch with a new plan in motion. Manning slumps with bitterness. His care over the inconvenience becomes a self-induced burden. Julius notices his pace is hastened as if time is running out, but time won't move any quicker or slower. The only hindrance is the stress he creates by caring too much over a small detail. The engineers return to their lab, and Julius steps aside with his partner to talk alone. "He's an asshole. Don't let it get to you," he says. Her face shows embarrassment. "I keep making my point, but he wasn't having it. It's his problem." "I can see you're stressed, but your face fell when he snapped on you." "It didn't." "I'm going to tell you the truth because I care. It did." She simmers down and relaxes her posture. "He wouldn't let me get a word in." "Well," he shrugs. "He might be older than you, but you have the same power as him. You can talk back all you want, but I'd keep my cool. The captain likes someone who can keep the peace and stand firm." Julius sees her nod to affirm his point. He raises a brow and talks more lightly. That was a temper tantrum he threw, and I know the captain doesn't like it when he does that. So keep cool and talk right through him. Play nice, but stay firm. She nods, and her brows wince with a question. How do you always keep so cool? He shrugs. On the battlefield, you have to keep your cool. Nowadays, I don't give a shit, a damn, or a fuck. Things fly south, and I'm like, okay, what's the solution? She laughs at his crass explanation. You digging what I'm laying down? He asks. Yeah, I got you. Linda enters the doorway unannounced. Sorry to eavesdrop, but I kinda heard everything. The engineers look at one another to recall their conversation. Linda puts forward a manila folder with papers. I was waiting to hand you the plans, but you didn't notice me. Plans? Elizabeth asks. The plans for the mission to Tokyo. Elizabeth takes the folder. That was fast. Thank you. Linda smiles. You two did a good job standing up to him. I'm glad you did. Julius gestures Linda to take a seat in the lab. She moves into the room and sits with a lean of attentiveness. Do you want coffee? Julius asks. Oh, no thank you. Elizabeth shrugs. I've never been good at arguments. Linda laughs. Be lucky you don't have a sister. You get good at it. Her eyes go toward Julius. Even better, you learn to pick your battles. Her eyes go back to Elizabeth. I guess you're right. Elizabeth laughs. And thank you for telling me that. It helps to know that I'm not alone. Not at all. I have your back whenever you need it. Linda pulls her chair closer and continues. If you need anything, just ask myself or Monica. We can work things out. Linda shrugs and looks toward Julius. Believe me, I love putting Manning in his place, but I try to cut to the chase. Hoyt tells me, just treat him like oil on water. She begins doing a very thorough impression of Dr. Hoyt. Julius laughs. That's exactly how he'd say that. The women laugh with a newfound trust in one another. Linda looks through smiling eyes and grows gradually quiet. Her attention turns to Julius. He tells me at least once a week. The laughter fades, and the group looks at one another briefly. Linda then looks toward Julius again. Her face shows slight discomfort. I may have heard wrong, but I think you said you were in the military? His smile becomes faint as he nods. Back in the Iowa secession. Her face grows soft. She raises her inner brows. That was a while ago. He nods. Not the same streets today. Streets? Julius feels the need to go over the long explanation once more, but Dr. Lawrence clarifies for him. He was in New Memphis. He was there the day of the siege. Understanding where he's been, the words fall from her mouth. You survived that? He nods, and she sits back in reverence. Not many people made it back, he says. As if to look at a relic of history, she attempts to honor him with mention of his unique nature. You're the only one I've met. This fact hurts to hear, but she only means to admire his legacy.